Are you able to hear me? Hello. Yeah. So before we start the session, just few points to keep it in your mind, man. Throughout the session, your microphones will be in mute state. Why? Because we do not want the external sounds to be disturbing the session, man. Okay. So please use your chat box for communicating with the process. Anything you have as a query, you can keep it in the chat box and I'll be responding depending upon the corresponding priority. Are you getting me? Now, what I mean to say is, you have any questions on your career, sir, this is good or that is good, this technology is better or that technology is better. Those all kind of things I'll be answering only through the priority of requirement. Okay, if it's any career related, you can contact me on my particular number, man, rather than we waste our time in the corresponding session. The second thing is, please see that your webcams are definitely off to protect your privacy. And the whole session will be live recorded. Post the session within 1 or 2 hours, we'll be uploading the session into your Google Drive, or you can even visit my YouTube channel and check the demo sessions. Okay, there these sessions will be uploaded. There these sessions will be uploaded. So I think these are very simple set of rules what you need to really recognize before we can start working out on the process. Nothing is too technically complicated to go with the process. All the remaining things, you leave it on my shoulders, making yourself convenient and consistent to be mastering in the database as a Oracle developer. That totally lies on my hands. I'll take that responsibility. You just leave it on my shoulders. Is that okay? Now, technically, when you say that you want to become a database developer, now whether you are trying to become a database developer using Oracle as one of the product, or you're using a MS SQL server, or you're using a MySQL, that doesn't matter, man. But finally, without understanding why we need to become a database developer and what will be my corresponding responsibilities if I'm trying to get into a database development is very, very important. So for you to become a database developer and you really want to work with the construct of the requirements, what IT demands from you, then definitely you need to understand the concept of the system and the data flow in real-time business. If we do not understand the system and the data flow, what's exactly happening in the construct of the real-time business, I don't think there's any fundamental meaning in making ourselves get into the database implementations. Now here, when you want to become a database developer, the first thing you should always try to understand is the system. Starting from today till the end of the course, our major concentration is to see that what exactly is a system and how we need to develop, how we need to get into the construct of developing a system. So in practical side of IT, if you're considering, system is nothing but any environment that is having a collection of objects on one side and events on another side. If we are in a system of conducting the live recording session, mean live online sessions of Oracle, let us say, then we are in a system of conducting the Oracle classes where on this side I am one of the object and the other side you are another object. We both are integrating ourselves in communication with an event called as this lecture. You take any system, a system is always any kind of business environment which is a collection of objects that are interesting to that system and events that are making that system to be active in its implementation. So within the system, if you have identified your objects and events, definitely these objects and events should have the ability of interacting with one another. Now here interaction doesn't mean that they will be speaking with one another. Any kind of operation that you're conducting in the business is nothing but an interaction. Suppose say like you went to one retail store and you're purchasing any products. Now, if you want to purchase your products in the retail store, you need to definitely interact to the location where the product is there. Take that particular product, keep it in the basket, come to the billing counter, make it get recognized by its cost of the value, and then pay that particular cost of that particular product, take a bill and come out. This is all interaction. Interaction means objects are interacting with the events. Even events are interacting with the objects to complete the business process. So why the objects and events should interact? If a question comes, the objects and events should interact for executing the business operations. Now, one of the very interesting question that generates here is, whenever we are executing the business operations with the help of the objects and events in the business, what happens exactly when these business operations are conducted? Whenever the business operations are conducted, you like or you do not like, data gets generated. Some kind of data gets generated. Once this data is getting generated, there exactly as a database developer, your role starts. Now, what I should do with this data, or what the businessman has to do with the data? The businessman always expects that the data that is generated within his business, the data that is getting generated in his business is stored with high level security, and it is basically stored for the sake of construct in an organized way to conduct his business once again in a better way. You take any business environment, definitely this part of the cycle will be there. But if the business is very small, I think the cycle can be easily handled by a manual process. Am I correct? But imagine if the business is too large, can you expect this particular process to be handled by using manual approachment? Hello, you should be responding in the chat box. Please communicate whenever I'm asking a question. When the business is very large, can we expect this process to be handled by the manual intervention? No. That is the area where we need to establish one environment. We need to definitely establish one environment. And this environment, what you're establishing or developing is called as database management systems environment. Sir, what exactly is DBMS? That is what we are going to learn throughout our course. So when your business is becoming too large and your business is becoming too sophisticated and complicated, the number of objects are increasing, the number of events are increasing, the type and the situation of the interaction between these objects and events is also increasing. Because of that, the more number of business operations are taking place, the more the number of business operations take place, the more the amount of data that's going to get generated. And this data you have to store and you want to secure. It is not possible so easily by human intervention or manual process. That's the area where the concept of principle called as database management systems arises, which is mostly computerized environment. Within this environment, we store and secure the generated data in a more better way or in a more processed way. Now here the question comes, okay, we will store the data and we'll secure the data. What we have to do with this stored data? Means this stored data, what exactly it is expected to do? See, every businessman is technically interested in doing his business in a better way by next 24 hours. Do you agree with me? Hello. Every businessman is really interested in conducting his business in a more better way in the next 24 hours. Do you agree with me? In that way, every day he wants to make his business to be more better. But how exactly the businessman can make his business more better without querying and analyzing the data? Means if yesterday's business process, if I analyze today, then I'll understand what is the best I'm doing, what is the worst I'm doing, and correcting the worst and continuing the best, I can expect my business to be done in a better way. Do you agree with me? So one of the question that comes is, as this data is collected and it is fundamentally stored, what I should do? You are expecting this data to be queried and analyzed. Now the question comes, why we should query or analyze the data? We should always try to query and analyze the data to understand the system and business in a more better way. If you are understanding that the system what you're conducting is basically going to make you execute in a more better way, then don't you think that you are utilizing that process to change the system once again in the business process or not? Show me one particular environment in the world of business which cannot be in this particular cycle, man. Can we have any particular business systems that never fall in this particular cycle? Hello. Do you have any systems that never fall in this particular cycle? No way. Now, this particular cycle, does it has any end point, man? This particular cycle, does it has any end point? No. Why? Because today's business definitely can be short of something better by tomorrow. Yes or no? And something in your business tomorrow can be short of the best what you can do day after tomorrow. So this cycle continues infinitely for any number of years. Be very, very clear about it. As a database developer, you are fundamentally trying to understand this process and keep any business of any domain of any client to be practically applied for the best what he can do in that particular business. Are you clear with your responsibility of becoming a database developer now? And all this has never happened in one single day, man. This cycle is already there in the world and it has never happened in one single day. So, sitting in the class, technically you're trying to learn a product provided by Oracle Corporation. So we are generally we say we are learning Oracle. We are not learning Oracle, man. We are trying to learn products that are developed by Oracle Corporation that can make you handle the data, organize the data, and arrange the data for a better quality of executing the business. So within Oracle, there are hundreds of products. There are hundreds of products, out of which the most two fundamental products you should try to learn. One is your SQL Star Plus, which helps you in understanding the data, organizing the data, establishing the relations between the data, and make you query the data for intelligent patterns that can be given to the end user for conducting his business in a better way. But business environments are dynamic or they are static. Business environments are dynamic or they are static. They are very dynamic. Now, when your business is looking very dynamic by nature, how to plan the dynamics of the business? The dynamics of the business can be planned by extending this SQL Star Plus to a technology of a language called as PLS skill, which is provided by Oracle Corporation. So this SQL Star Plus and PLS skill, together they are used for establishing a system of business in real time. So I think it's very clear why we are learning Oracle and what we are learning in Oracle in the first class itself, man. So your entire responsibility for this particular sessions is to see that you're technically learning your SQL Star Plus and PLS skill in a very best way to build real-time business systems. Am I clear? And these real-time business systems, they were initially developed and researched as database management systems, DBMS. If you are a student coming from the computer science background, and if you're a student coming from the construct of management backgrounds, then definitely I think in your academics, you could have heard about something called as database management systems, which is nothing but a kind of principle. Database management systems is nothing but it's a kind of principle that makes you understand any business environment and organize the data that is available in the business environment in a very proper methodology. And on this, much lot of softwares have been developed and these softwares have been kept into practice. But when these softwares were implemented in the real business environment, it has been identified that the softwares were doing the construct of the data organization and data manipulations in a very wonderful way. No complaints. But technically, they are lacking certain aspects that are in demand. They are lacking certain aspects that are in demand to the requirement of the business owner. But this principle, as it is, if it is made changes to that, the whole concept of the DBMS will be disturbed. So without disturbing the core concept behind DBMS, the world started researching once again, and then it started extending this with a concept called as relational database management systems, which is called as RDBMS. So remember one thing very clearly, RDBMS is an extension of DBMS. Am I clear? Means the limitations of DBMS are extensions in RDBMS. Therefore, if you can't understand the principles of DBMS, can you really understand the concepts and principles of RDBMS? No way. Now, once the products in RDBMS have been developed and these products have been pushed to the implementation of the requirement in the client's business, they identified that certain areas in the client's business environment, they cannot be represented and they cannot be operated by the principles of RDBMS. So definitely you cannot fundamentally override the concepts of RDBMS. So they extended the systems into object-oriented DBMS. Means the world started looking into the construct of developing any systems in the form of object-oriented principles. Very soon, the world understood that no business system can be purely RDBMS by nature and it cannot be purely object-oriented by nature. Then absolutely they started putting the process into a combination of object relational database management systems. This is first level criteria of how the systems got developed, how the systems got developed. Out of which your industry expects that you come into the industry at least by understanding RDBMS in the best way. Is that point clear to you? But the world really never stopped in its research. And suddenly internet-oriented applications, they started coming in. Then the world went into an extension of the research into web-oriented database management systems. Then web technologies, they started pushing the data to the end user in the form of content. So immediately the world started moving into the research of content-oriented database management systems. Now the data size started increasing very rapidly, and this huge amount of size of data was becoming one of the burden for conducting the business operations from anywhere in the world with the speed that is expected. Then the research process went into the construct called as column-oriented database management systems. These column-oriented database management systems are technically considered as NoSQL databases in the world today. NoSQL doesn't mean that there will not be any influence of SQL in the project. NoSQL means not only SQL. Means there was one standard belief in the world that wherever you have data with you, the data should be handled only with a language called as SQL. But columnar oriented database management systems, they gave an idea to the world that even without using SQL, by following some sophisticated standards in programming, we can handle the data. And all this process of a database management system development is now moving into a cloud computing based database management systems. But I want to concentrate on one thing, man. Even though the research has gone to so many number of levels, anywhere this fundamental term is missing, man. Hello. Anywhere do you find this fundamental term to be missing? No. So it is a very clear proof that anywhere you want to operate on the data and anywhere you want to implement the construct of the data, understanding the core principles of DBMS is very, very important. The foundation is database management systems. Therefore, any student, generally they ask me, sir, I want to learn directly cloud computing. You can learn when what is there. If your pockets are having money, you can learn anything. But what will be the success rate? Institute will take the money, no doubt. But what about your success rate when you are saying that you learn that directly without having clarity on this? So I will prepare you starting from the core principles of DBMS. We will go up to the construct of object relational database management systems. Sir, why? 90% of the enterprise implementations in the world, they operate in these 4 levels of the principles. This data that is collected here is extended into these platforms. These are all not actually constructional principles, when these are platforms. Are you getting me? Your data moves into those platforms. So when the platform is changing, you don't need to have any constructive learning process. When your core is very clear, your extensional implementations will be much easy. And all this has never happened in one single day. It started around 1960s. And it technically started into the construct of the research up to 2010. And what we are following now in the world is this timeline. On this particular timeline of research and development, everything has happened. Imagine you sit in the class and you say that, sir, in 10-15 days, I want to become a database expert. Now you should understand where you are doing the mistake. So when you come into the industry and you say that you are a database expert, the industry technically expects you to operate on this entire timeline with the clientsman. There are even clients today who are having their data technically operated in the construct and composition in the principles of DBMS. Being a database expert, you should know how to make these environments to be integrated and even converted. That is also another type of responsibility you have in the process. Therefore, for all these things to happen very perfectly, finally, I think there is something that is influencing the whole process, man. That is, none of these environments can exist unless and until you do not understand what is data. Do you agree with me? So let us try to understand what is exactly meant by data. What is exactly meant by data? See, for a general student, data can be very simple, man. But the first thing you should remember is data is any stored representation of objects and events of the business. Means where exactly you are storing any information related to the objects and events of your business, that is called as data. And every object and event, what you're storing, that object and event, what you're fundamentally storing should have meaning to the end user's business system. Means if you say this is the object I'm storing, then that object should have definitely a state of importance in that particular business environment, and you should have proper meaning to conduct that business environment. If you are constructively storing data related to objects that are not important to the business or that are not having any meaning to that particular business, now that's a failed database management system environment. Your data can be either structured or unstructured by nature, by its existence. When you say structured data, what I mean is your data is having clarity of understanding its properties and features. Like any data that can be queried and analyzed for business understanding on the construct of something called a student's name, the student's address, date of birth. Means anytime you're having any data, when you look into this particular data, you can understand it is exactly belonging to which object and which event. Such kind of data is called as structured. But all the data in the world cannot be structured by nature. Therefore, there are cases where database developers have to definitely operate even on unstructured data. Unstructured data is any kind of data that cannot be represented with a meaningful label. Now, when you're having any audio data or video data or image data, generally we call them as unstructured by nature. Unstructured means you cannot understand the properties and behaviors of that particular data directly. Am I clear? So the general data representation in the business can be in any particular way, man. I'm just trying to show you something on my screen, man. Just concentrate. Now, can I say these are rows of information what I'm collecting? Everybody should be responding, man, because these are all something what you should understand, not me. Can I say these are rows of information what I'm collecting? Yes. Now, looking into these 7 rows of information, man, can you tell me exactly what is the type of business for which this data is being collected? Can you tell me exactly for the kind of which business this data is being collected? Can you give me the system? I'll help you. Okay, just listen. This data is belonging to the system of banking. This data is belonging to the system of insurance. This data is belong to the system of education. This data is belong to the system of healthcare. Which one can you tell me? Can you tell me the system? It's basically very difficult. Am I correct? So remember, data does not has direct meaning to represent the system. When you see some data, you cannot directly understand the data belongs to which system. If your system is not clear, can you expect your business to be clear? Hello. Never. Okay. If your system is not clear, then technically your business can never be clear. That's first problem with data. Okay. Why database management system developers are essential. If you want to understand, start following now. So data cannot give clarity of the business, clarity of the system. That's great. Can you tell me this data belongs to, okay? Can you tell me this data belongs to which object in the business? I will help you. This data belongs to employees. This data belongs to students. This data belongs to faculties. This data belongs to patients. This data belongs to customers in a bank. Which one is correct? Can we have clarity on this? No, we can't have any clarity. Okay. We can make some prediction. We can make some prediction. Somebody may say, sir, this data is of employees, but because of which particular property you can say it's an employee. So remember, data cannot directly give meaningful information regarding the business. Because your data is not giving meaningful information regarding the business, 100% the data cannot give you meaningful state of the object also. When object is not clear, can you tell me the property to which this data belongs to me? Can you just tell me what is the property to which this column of data belongs to? Can you tell me? Okay, by common sense, we can say they are names, but I'm asking you whose name? Okay, by common sense, you can say they are names, but I'm asking you whose name. Are we having clarity? No. So finally, data is something what the original owner can understand, but not everybody. Am I clear? Am I clear? I'm repeating once again. Data is something what original owner can understand or identify, but not everybody. But I think you are a software developer, man. If you have to develop the software that is expected by your client for the sake of his business, don't you think that it is you who should understand this data perfectly? So, being a database developer, if we cannot understand the state of the data or the situation of the data, we will be a very big failure, man. Therefore, every database management system developer's first responsibility is understanding the data in the business. We should convert the data into information. We should convert the data into information. Am I clear? Sir, what is information? Information in practicality is nothing but data that is in processed form. Information is anything which is data that is in processed form. Processed form means what? It should have the ability to increase the knowledge of the person who is actually using that particular data. Information is nothing but it is basically expected to have the criteria of increasing the intelligence of the knowledge of the person who is actually using the business data. Information technically gives you proper platform for the businessman to understand his business hierarchy, operations and process cycles, process and operations which are going to be integrating, and it is decreasing the interdependency slowly. So any business data is considered to be information when it is absolutely mapped. It is properly mapped with labels, data types and data size, and having all the business validations. As a developer, if you can make all these things to be embedded into your particular data, then your data becomes information. Information is what the end user always needs. Therefore, you are going to learn Oracle from this class or you're going to learn anything, I don't care. But by the day when I say your course is completed, are you having the ability? Are you having the ability of technically trying to get confidence that I can develop systems which are database management systems as expected by the end user, understanding his data and giving information to that end user. So how information is represented in the business? Remember one thing, information is also derived technically from the existing data only. But watch carefully, man. In the previous slide, what I had as data, I'm using the same data or different data. I'm using the same data or different data, same data. But now I'm asking some questions, man. This data is belonging to which object in the business? Can you tell me now? This data is belonging to which object in the business? Hello. Can I say this data is belonging to an object called as employee in the business? Second, this object is belonging to which organization in the business? We can definitely say that it is belonging to an organization called as SQL. These all objects called as employees in the business, they are actually operating from where? They're actually operating from where? Something called as a place called as Hyderabad. These all employees in the organization are current to which particular date? Are current to which particular date? 6th October 2025. These all employees belonging to this organization, they are having their names in which column? The first column. Can you tell me the department in which the employee called as Blake is working? 10. Can you tell me the employee called as King, he is getting how much amount of salary? 5,000. Means any question I am asking you, we are having very perfect, straightforward answer or not? Means when your data is becoming information, any question you raise upon the data, it definitely gives you a meaningful answer. When it is giving you meaningful answer, for every question that is raised by the client, it is information. Am I clear? Is the difference between data and information is clear? Now, I want some answer from you, okay? Now my client, I presented this information to my client man. Now my client is asking me, Satish, you said that these employees are working in a place called as Hyderabad. Now can you tell me which Hyderabad? The moment my client is raising any question upon the information, and if I'm unable to convince him, then it becomes data once again. So can we say that today's information is always information compulsorily? Hello. Can we say that today's information is always information compulsorily? No. When your client raises any question, to that question, if you cannot have a convincing answer, it becomes a data once again. Suppose I'm telling my client that, sure, Hyderabad means it's nothing but a place that is existing in India. Then a client is saying, sorry, Sadesh, I have my company in more than 20 countries, and I have one of my company branch existing in Pakistan where Hyderabad is there. I want to know these employees are employees of Hyderabad, India or Hyderabad, Pakistan. Don't you think that the client is having some confusion on his data now, on his information? As a developer, it is your responsibility to see that you are removing that particular confusion. Now, doing some kind of programming or anything, you just call it anything, I don't care. Imagine that you're adding one place called as country, and then you're adding another place called as the city. Now, don't you think that because of adding this extra feature, the previous confusion to the information is eliminated now? That's how a database developer always he has to work for the criteria of eliminating the ambiguity that is generated by the client upon the information what you supplied. Now let us understand one thing. Your client is saying that, Satish, now everything is looking good, but I just want to know when you're giving the salary is exactly on which particular currency. Then you're saying that, so the currency, if the country is India, then definitely it will be Indian rupees. The client says, that's okay, but I do not want the people who are looking into this data should have confusion. Please make some arrangement. Once again, don't you think that what you thought information became data once again? Now, say like you struggled a lot and you identified the constraint and you started adding something called as a currency indicator beside the data. You started keeping this currency indicator beside the data. Now, don't you think that you are satisfying your client once again, converting data to information? Once you presented this as information, your client is happy, man. Then your client is saying, everything is going good, don't worry. Now, I just have a doubt. When you're giving this data of joining, now I'm very much confused. Which is the day, which is the month, and which is the year? Now, once again, your information became data. Your job as a database developer is to think and convert that into information once again. Imagine you made some enhancements and not to have confusion, you said that let me add something like an abbreviated month. Now, once we added this abbreviated month, technologically, it is becoming day, month, and year very clear to the end user. Do you agree with me? So, remember one thing, man. Your client always gives you data by using any technology and platform. You have to convert that into information in the order in which he expects. Anytime the business is going for a change, definitely there is a chance your data, your information can become data once again. Therefore, data and information are two different sides of the same coin. Don't just take the definition from the books. If you take the definition from the books, you'll have a great lot of confusion. Practically, it is something which is a very important and very typical task a database developer should do. Now, in this process, one of the questions that comes is what is exactly metadata? Now, if you take the fundamental definition from the booksman, data about data or information about information is metadata. That's okay. But remember, metadata is also one kind of data which is basically nothing but which describes the properties or characteristics of the end user's business data and the context of the data. So metadata is anything that is describing the properties or characteristics of the business. The properties described by metadata can include any information like data name, data definition, data length or size, the data values that are fundamentally allowed, the source of the data ownership, and the state of the data. Means your metadata generally describes all these components that are basically making your data to look more meaningful and more better. There are four categories of metadata. One is called as technical metadata, which is primarily definitional by nature, and it always describes the state of the technology that is required. We have business metadata. Business metadata is primarily descriptive by nature, and it describes the requirements of the business. We have process metadata, which is basically or primarily descriptive by nature, and it is always going to help you in understanding the process. Means it describes the requirements of the business process that has to be executed. Then finally, we have descriptive metadata, where descriptive metadata describes any object of the business in detail, where descriptive metadata may include the details of knowledge that can identify the object in detail. Any database developer, he should definitely understand the business metadata, process metadata, and descriptive metadata. Technical metadata is for administrators. You don't need to worry about that. We will see throughout the course how we can understand this very easily, man. But here there is a small point of concentration. Metadata and business data should always be separated. They should not be kept together. Why? Metadata is something that is describing the businessman. Business data is something that is representing the execution of the business. Business can change anytime. Do you agree with me? Hello. Business can change anytime. Do you agree with me? Whenever the business changes, don't you think that there is a chance of metadata of the business and the business data of the business to change once again? If you keep the metadata and business data together, whenever business goes for a change of implementation, your whole project goes into maintenance. Therefore, metadata and business data should be stored separately, where metadata uses some type of link or reference to the actual business data. Because metadata and business data are definitely serving two different kinds of processes. They are serving two different kinds of purposes. Therefore, they should never be kept together. In order to understand metadata, you have to follow along with me for the next few minutes. Else, throughout your life, it will be confusion for you. So what is the main need of metadata in the business? Metadata technically enables the database designers and the programmers to understand exactly in which form the data should exist. Means it synchronizes the responsibilities between the designers and the programmers. Programmer means you, designer means your senior. You and your senior, if you have to communicate with one another very effectively and perfectly and execute through the requirement, then definitely metadata is essential. It makes the database designers and programmers to synchronize their thoughts in development. Makes the programmers and administrators to think on a similar platform. Means if the team that is working in the project, all the team, if it has to think very properly in the construct of making the project successful, metadata plays a very, very vital role. If metadata is missing, what is the problem you watch? Okay. Now just watch the screen, man. I think it's the same data what technically we were representing in the first slide. Am I correct? Now, once again, I have questions, man. By common sense, if I'm the owner of this data, can I understand the nature of the data and the properties of this data or not? If I'm the owner, I can always understand. But can everybody understand the properties and nature of this data, man? No, definitely not. So this data is looking meaningless. This data is looking meaningless for some people only because this data is missing metadata. So when metadata is missing, people cannot understand the data as information. Sir, what do you mean? Watch carefully. Now I am giving some heading called as employees information, man. Did I represent any information of employees here? No, but I'm having a question for you. Which object of the business I will represent in this area? Employee. So I think you got a correct answer, yes or no? But do we have any employees information here? No. So it's not this is describing your idea. It's not this is technically describing your idea about the object of the business you're going to represent. That's the power of metadata, man. I want answers from you once again. I'm saying organization. Means I'm very clearly understanding that every employee belongs to some organization. Do you agree with me? But do I have any information about organization here? No. I am saying the date, which is very clearly indicating that every employee will be identified by a date of his recruitment. Am I correct? But do I have any value of the date here? No. Then I'm technically saying country. This indicates that these employees of the organization, they belong to some country, and within that country, they belong to a particular place, and these employees are recognized by their name. They are recognized by the department in which they are working. They technically will have some salary. They are definitely recognized by date of joining. Did I keep any business information in this particular slide? Hello, did I keep any business information in this slide? No. But are we not getting the clarity of the object for which we are going to describe the data? So what you're seeing here is the descriptive properties of data, or it is data. What you're seeing on my screen is descriptive properties of the data or data. Descriptive properties of the data, but it is not actually the data. Yes or no? This is called as metadata, man. Are you getting me? This is called as metadata. Once your metadata is clear, don't you think that your business data is having some clarity even though the values are not there? So looking into the metadata, can I understand the system? Hello. Looking into the metadata, can I understand the system? Yes. Can I understand the object? Can I understand the object? Yes. Can I understand the properties of the object? So metadata is something that gives meaningful state to your business data. Now I am filling my business data, man. Even before I filled my business data, I think this data was having clarity. So metadata will give clarity to your business data only when the metadata is represented to the business data, it becomes information. So any data that any data that misses metadata is raw data. Am I clear? Am I clear? Which technically does not has any meaning. Any data that is represented by associating with metadata becomes information, which is meaningful. Are you understand the basic difference? So in real time, when you come in, man, different people will have different kind of structural standards for representing data and metadata constructs, man. Therefore, an analyst may give you the metadata structure like this, saying that please see that your name of the table is employee information. The fields of data you should collect are this. This is the kind of data I'm expecting you to collect. This is the maximum length that you need to represent, with the minimum values and maximum values to be something like this. Now, this you should convert in such a way that it can be accepted by your database environment. So sitting in the class, if you say you're a database developer, man, when your business analyst is giving you some data like this, taking this business analyst information if we can convert that into a representation of a technology, as a database developer, you are successful. That is the reason we need database management system, which is fundamentally a software that has the ability of creating required data structures for the business, maintain the structure and the data as per the corresponding state of the business, provide controlled access to the business users upon that particular piece of the database, means should have very practical state of security and privacy. So all such kind of softwares that can give you this ability are called as database management system softwares. There are many number of database management system softwares. Sitting in my class, you are trying to learn a software provided by Oracle Corporation. Sir, why I should learn only Oracle Corporation software? Because it is time tested and it is the best that is considered in the industry with highest share, with the highest clients in the market. So any database management system should provide a systematic methodology of creating of business structures and data, retrieving of the business data, updating or modifying the business data, and finally deleting unwanted business data. So your final goal by the time you're completing this course is to understand how perfectly you can do these crude operations. Am I clear? So the entire course is absolutely concentrating on how perfectly you can learn to do these crude operations in the best way to the industrial constructs. David, if you say that you're a database management system developer, then what are the expected features of the DBMS? It should enable end users and application programmers to share the data. Enable data shared among multiple different number of applications. It should not propagate the data and store the data in new files for every new application. Means we are never going to store the data by physically exposing the files. Should provide facility for controlling data access, enforce data integrity, manage concurrency control, and restoring the data in system failures. If you say you are working on any database management system software, it should provide all these facilities. What is meant by controlled data access? Means if X has to seize the data, only X should get access to the data, not Y. Enforce data integrity, 100% quality. Manage concurrency control. Even if 200 people are requesting the data, it should provide the data definitely at a time. Restoring the data in the constructor data failures. If suddenly your machine fails, your database management system software should have the ability of recovering the data. Maintain low repetition and redundancy of the business data. Should not be providing any facility for duplication of data. Provide enhanced security and privacy. Easy maintenance of large databases at enterprise level. Improved file consistency, avoiding the duplication of files. Provide improved data integration standards. Help in better decision making for mid-level and top-level managers. Provide improved efficiency, accuracy, and consistency. Should provide insulation between the data and the corresponding programs. Means if data changes, your program should not get affected. If your program changes, your data should not get affected. Should have facility for data persistence. 100% the data should be permanent by nature. Should represent complex relationship between the data and the business system. Should provide multiple views of the same data as per the situational requirement. Should provide flexibility for even novice users to access the business data. Means when you say that you have developed one database management system, even an end user who is uneducated, he should have the feature and facility of accessing your data very easily, even without knowing the technology. Provide great features for data transformation and presentation. Provide a language for easy accessibility and operations. Should provide facility for various database communication interfaces. By the time you complete your course, Are you achieving all these things by learning database management system software or not is a successment. If you go into the market and say, I know Oracle with SQL and PLSQL, nobody cares. Once they put you into the project, they will check how many number of these services you can provide them. And remember, the construct of the database management systems development has never happened in one single day, man. It has never happened in one single day. Tomorrow, when I'm speaking with you, I'll be speaking on those database models and their timelines. In how many different models the databases have come into the picture and what was the timeline under which they were developed. And before we leave, I want to make one point clear to you. This meeting link is same. You don't need to change this every day up to this Sunday, man. Therefore, you can share with your friends or any of your colleagues and they can attend the demo sessions and they can take a decision whether they can be part of these sessions or not. Okay. So let us see what is waiting for us in next 24 hours, man. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Once again with you tomorrow. Have a nice day. Take care of yourself. Have a great day.